This video will cover how to add activities and standard clarifications to your curriculum in Forethought. The first thing you need to make sure that you have done is you need to have published the course that you're working in. In the Manage Learning Standards button, in your course, you want to make sure after you've made your changes that you need to make that you actually publish your course. Publishing makes sure that when we go to the next step, adding the activities, we actually see the changes that we've made. Once I've done that, I'm going to go over to the Scope and Sequence tab. There are multiple ways to add activities, but I believe that the Scope and Sequence tab is the easiest way to limit or reduce the number of errors. We'll just say it that way. So what I'm going to do here in going to the Scope and Sequence tab is I'm going to pull up my course. We're going to do this 5th grade science. And I want to, let's say my job first is to update or to add the document for my year overview. So I select that standard by left clicking on it, and I want to add the activity. Remember, an activity can be lots of different things, but I'm going to add that activity here so that when the teachers click on Curriculum Overview and then click on Year Overview, they will be able to see that resource in their lesson planner. So I left click here, and then you're going to do something that you don't do very often in eduphoria. You're going to right click, and you get 2 options: add a new activity or add a new standard clarification. Let's do an activity first. So then I left click on new activity, and a new window is going to open. So now I have a lot of stuff on my screen. A lot of times what I'll do is I will close this pane just so I have a little bit more room to work. The next thing that you have to do is title it. Before you do anything else, give it a title. That's super important because if you don't, it's hard to find later on. So you want to give it a title that's clear and concise for teachers so people know what it is. And then before you do anything else, I recommend saving your work, even though all you've done is give a title. And here's something that I also recommend. Go ahead and publish the activity. Publish the activity now, because once you publish it, you won't forget to publish it later on. Here's the thing. You only have to publish it one time. So you want to do that save, and then you want to click publish, and you want to hit submit. You don't have to fill out anything here. That's for kind of another tool where you're approving activities that teachers are submitting from their lesson planner. So you just kind of ignore this right here and click submit. So save, publish, submit, SPS if you want a way to remember that. Then you can go in and you can type in here. You can copy and paste into here. You can edit. You can add links. You can do whatever you want. There's tons of editing buttons here. You can also add an attachment or attachments. So you click on the paper clip, choose a file, and let's just find a document here and click attach file. After you've made your changes, all you have to do is click save. You do not have to publish again. That's why I recommend publishing at the very beginning so that you always remember that you've published. If you get in the habit of that, you won't have activities out there that haven't been published and then teachers can't see them. You can always come back in here and change it. If you need to edit this document, that's fine. The nice thing about the Scope and Sequence tab is just because I've published it and I've created this, other curriculum writers and delegates for that particular course can also go into the Scope and Sequence tab, go to that course, go to the standard, and edit the activity. That's why it's important that you use the Scope and Sequence tab, because you're really going, think about it this way, you're going from the course to the standard to the activity. That way, this activity, because the way that teachers find this activity is it is linked to this standard called Year Overview within 5th grade science. If we did not have this Year Overview standard right here, this activity would be out there in La La Land. All activities have to be connected to a standard. Let's do another example. Let's do a standard clarification. Let's say I wanted to clarify 1A. So I'm going to select that. I've already got an activity here, probably as a practice, but let's add a standard clarification. So we're going to right click. We're going to choose Add Standard Clarification. We're going to get a different icon in just a second down here once we save this. I'm going to go ahead and keep it as standard clarification because we're clarifying the standard. We are telling the teachers what this means. A lot of times people will put examples, vocabulary, or even test item samples. Whatever that works, whatever works for you. Now with the standard clarification, I don't have to publish these. Once I hit save, it's going to save that. I'm going to click on here to refresh, and now I have that standard clarification. Notice the different icons here. Standard clarifications are typically attached to standards or your state standards, and there's typically one per state standard. Here's the deal. I've got 1A right here within Unit 1. I've got my standard clarification for it. I could also have 1A later on in another unit, if I did, and I could create a different standard clarification for that. Everything that you create here on the Scope and Sequence tab is also going to show up over here on your tab called My Activities. This is a second way to add activities. It is not my favorite because what it does is you have to create an activity first, then connect it to the course and to the standard. It's a little bit more challenging not to actually create it, but to make sure you've got it linked in the correct way. So Scope and Sequence tab allows you to go from the course to the standard and then the activity. The My Activities kind of reverses that order. But the My Activities for you are only for you. Your activities are only for the one that when you click on My Activities, those are only the ones that you have created, that individual user. If it stayed in My Activities and wasn't linked anywhere, nobody would ever see it. But Scope and Sequence, if someone leaves the district that has written a ton of resources or added a ton of activities, somebody else could actually go in and edit those. That person has to have the correct rights or roles. All right, so that's the most important thing about those activities.